Hello, everyone. If I haven't met you yet, my name is Kelsey Erickson Streufert. I'm the Chief Public Affairs Officer for the Texas Restaurant Association. We also have Erica here on our team. She's our advocacy manager. And we will go ahead and get started. We are recording this webinar because we know trying to get restaurant folks, even in a virtual room together at one time is always challenging. So we'll make sure that this is available for all those who couldn't join us live. With that, I've got a quick little presentation I'm going to share, so I will turn it over to that. Isaac, was nice to see your face for a minute. Okay, so you don't have to keep your camera on. It's just nice to put a face with the name since we haven't gotten to meet yet in person. Okay, so thank you everyone for being here today. Just a couple quick housekeeping items. Of course, first is just thank you. We know y'all are so incredibly busy, and we really appreciate you spending 30 minutes with us here in Texas. I'm a lawyer, so I always have to have these disclaimers. This is closed to the media, off the record, confidential conversation. If you take screenshots of the slides or anything like that, just please don't share beyond your organization's leadership. And then as always, please share your questions and feedback with us. I've got my contact info on there, Emily's contact info on there, and then later on we'll have our local executive directors, their information for you as well. I also have to say a quick apologies. Emily was planning to join us here today, but she is actually being inducted into the National Restaurant Association Board as we speak. Which we're very excited about, but it means she wasn't able to join us today after all, but she is always available if you need her. So with that, we'll dive right in. So first, why are we here today? Really, we just kind of want to reiterate that the stakes are really high in Texas. No huge surprise, we're the second largest state for US restaurants. I would bet we'll be the #1 state before too long, because we're definitely growing. We're also increasingly leading the way on litigation efforts, different advocacy efforts that not only impact restaurants in Texas, but really all across the US. And then also the stakes are really high because Texas is unique in that our regular legislative session is only 140 days and it's only every other year. So we really have a narrow window of opportunity to both stop bad pieces of legislation or fix them, and then also pass legislation that can really become a model for the rest of the country. Really proud of the fact, like I said, that Texas is increasingly leading the way when we look at other SRAs, when we look at what National's doing. A lot of great work is really starting and taking root in Texas. You can see on the litigation front, we've been very busy. We got 2 major lawsuit wins this year here in Texas with our partners at the Restaurant Law Center. That's on joint employer and the 80-20-30 rule. We are very hopeful that we are going to be 3 for 3 with an overtime thresholds win later this year from the Texas courts, or the federal courts in Texas, I should say. We're also working with the Restaurant Law Center on a Texas Supreme Court case that could be a really great bellwether to create clear lines of liability around liquor service, or what's known as dram shop laws. We really see this case as an opportunity to limit liability, which not only helps protect your business, but it also helps you get the liquor insurance that you need at a more affordable rate. And then we also won, I shouldn't say we won a case, we filed an amicus brief that was really critical in a restaurant winning their lawsuit on an economic development issue. Again, that was a partnership with the Restaurant Law Center. I won't read all of these, I promise, but at the federal level, we're very proud to have the largest delegation at the Public Affairs Conference. We had over 37 Hill visits that Erica coordinated just this year, so Texans were literally all over Capitol Hill. We were really key in the PPP Flexibility Act. I know that seems like a lifetime ago, but if you remember, when the PPP was originally created, it really was drafted with the idea that we were going to close for 2 weeks and bend the curve and then be back to business. And we all know that didn't happen. And so Emily picked up the phone, called a freshman lawmaker, Chip Roy, and they worked in a bipartisan fashion to create this bill that ultimately passed and really made the PPP the lifeline that it ended up being for restaurants and other businesses all across the country. Also proud that two of our major national bills that we're pushing right now, the Credit Card Competition Act and the Essential Workers for Economic Advancement Act, both have Texas authors on them. We think that's really key. And then the HIRE Act is by Representative Gonzalez. It's another bill we support to make the worker visa process more streamlined. Again, I won't read through all of these, but just a few examples of the way that Texas policy really becomes a model for the rest of the nation. Our Texas Regulatory Consistency Act that we got passed last year is probably the most comprehensive preemption bill that I've ever seen. It essentially said that on core topics of economic regulation, so think all of your labor issues, all of your insurance issues, all of your property rights issues, major environmental issues, all of those issues can no longer be regulated at the local level unless local regulations are consistent with what the state has already said. So what does that mean for restaurants in Texas? We don't have to worry about predictive scheduling rules at the local level or paid sick leave mandates at the local level. Just a lot of things that we are fighting all across the country at the local level have now been essentially shelved by this one piece of really strong legislation. We went even further with preemption last session. We got a to-go packaging and straw preemption ban passed in Texas. So again, we don't have to worry about the city of Austin, for example, banning styrofoam or banning the use of straws or requiring compostable materials, right? All of those things that many of you were fighting in localities all across the country are now not an issue in Texas moving forward. Same for natural gas bans, not an issue in Texas anymore. We're also really leading the way in how we think about childcare. This is an issue that the restaurant industry really hasn't delved into in the past. But when you look at our workforce needs and you look at the gap in the number of employees that are available to serve those needs, this is an area that we think we really should be more proactive on. We created a task force known as the Employers for Childcare Task Force, or E4C. And the idea is really to bring entrepreneurs, small businesses to the table to develop childcare policy solutions that work for industry so that we don't end up with mandates and costs and things that frankly are kind of shoved down our throat because we weren't proactive in developing the solutions. Lots of issues at the local level. You'll see no check marks because these are sort of things that we are always fighting at the local level and always probably will need to. But in a state as big as Texas, it's really important that we have our thumb on the pulse of what's happening all across the state because these issues can become huge nuisances or helpful to your business. So I mentioned we only have a legislative session every other year. Last session for us was in 2023. It was probably our most successful legislative session we have ever had. We had what we call 70 wins in 70 days. You can see many of the topics here: repealing permit fees, shielding restaurants from predictive scheduling. There was going to be a new training requirement that would have applied to every single alcohol server and basically required them to take opioid overdose training. We were able to completely exempt restaurants from that mandate. Of course, we defeated efforts to get rid of the tip credit, dealt with online privacy programs, et cetera. And probably the most important thing that we accomplished, not only in 2023, but also in 2021, is we had a 100% success rate blocking harmful legislation. Very proud of that effort in Texas. So this session, we are very busy getting prepared for. It'll start in January of 2025. These are the items that we've identified as likely priorities for us this session. And we kind of think about it in terms of themes or buckets. So first, as always, is defense. We really want to protect that 100% success rate, make sure that we don't go backwards on any regulations or mandates that could impact your businesses in Texas. The second is very simply save restaurants money. When we poll our members, when we talk to our operators, costs are the biggest challenges that they're facing. Government can't control all of those costs, but they certainly can help lower fees and costs and taxes that do ultimately impact that bottom line. Part of that as well is swipe fees. I'll talk a little bit about this more later, but Texas is really being innovative in how we approach the swipe fee conundrum. Last session, we had a bill to prohibit swipe fees on sales and liquor taxes that restaurants collect. We had a really great hearing on that bill. Unfortunately, we got stopped there. We will re-up that effort again this year, but we're also taking it a step further, frankly. We really want to lean into the arguments about how these fees are hidden from consumers, costing consumers thousands of dollars. They are not transparent. They are not set in a competitive free market system that Texas really prides itself on. And so those are the arguments that we're really going to lean into with a new bill this session. I don't want to say too much yet about what that looks like because we're trying to keep it secret from our opposition. But I think it's just another example of Texas being willing to think outside of the box and try new things while working closely with our partners at National to make sure that whether we can pass something in Texas or not, we're continuing to up the ante and the pressure to bring the banks and the credit card companies to the table and find something that is going to be a significant improvement over where we are today. Our second sort of offensive priority is to strengthen the workforce. I talked a bit about childcare. Of course, we're always supporting Texas ProStart and other educational initiatives that directly tie to our industry. And then lastly is improve restaurant resiliency. I'm sure many of you heard from your operators in Texas after Hurricane Beryl or the May derecho. We actually estimated that restaurants just in the greater Houston, Galveston area lost $1 billion in sales alone as a result of those two weather events. So that made it really clear to us that we have to start looking at our long-term resiliency. You can have the best restaurant in the world, but if you can't operate for a week because the electric grid is down, that's going to frankly close a lot of independent restaurants and be very detrimental to franchises and chains as well. So we're getting really involved in conversations about the electric grid's reliability and also the costs that are being passed down to consumers as a result of those fixes. We're looking at things like bridge loan funding to help tie restaurants over if there's a disaster, as they're waiting for an insurance payout or an SBA loan or something like that. And then also business insurance. We are hearing from all of our members that it is increasingly difficult to find coverage, whether it's alcohol coverage, general liability, property insurance. And then once you find it, the rates are exorbitant and they're climbing pretty quickly. So I think there's some tort reforms we can do, some insurance changes we can make to, again, just really shore up that resiliency. I'm going to pause there, take a breath, and see if y'all have any questions about these priorities, any feedback, anything that you think we're missing. You're welcome to come off mute, or we'll monitor the chat box as well. You're welcome, Isaac. Okay, we'll keep going, but if anyone does have any thoughts, don't hesitate to throw up a hand or drop us a note in the chat. Here's the slide I mentioned earlier. Take a screenshot of this, take a picture of this. Anytime you have an issue with a store in Texas, please reach out to us. No issue is too small. We have helped brands with utility hookups, get their new permits, navigate wet, dry county status, right? The list goes on and on. But please know that we're here to help, and that's our job, and we welcome it. So this is sort of your first line of defense of who to contact, especially if it's a local issue. The purple area is Jenna Jones, blue is Corey Mobley, yellow is Madison, red is Dawn, and this green is Christina and her team. And then of course you can always reach out to me, Erica, and Emily as well. So now the fun part of the of the presentation, which is kind of the ask, right? We know y'all are hit with asks from every state restaurant association, National Restaurant Association, et cetera. But we think it's important you know that covering a state as big as Texas and leading nationally takes incredible resources, and we just can't do it alone, right? So Texas is 254 counties. I think the thing that shocks me is we have over 200 different health departments. That's what this map is that you can see on the side. So there are just sheer volume. There is a ton to monitor in any given date and time. And so we're asking for your help, simply put. We have a fund called the Traction Fund. It can accept corporate or personal contributions. And really what it does is it helps us offset lobby costs, litigation fees, grassroots organizing, communications, PR, all the things that we have to do to be successful in our advocacy work at the local, state, and federal level. We have set a goal to raise $230,000 this year for our Traction Fund. We are kind of right on par with where we should be for the year. But this is the most aggressive goal we've ever set for ourselves, and it's going to take really working through the rest of the year to have a shot at hitting that goal. We currently have national brands that are giving at the $20,000, $10,000, or $5,000 level. Would really ask each of you to go back to your companies, make an ask, see if there's a contribution that you can make in Texas. And if you can't give this year, can you include it in your budget for next year? And truly every dollar counts, every dollar makes a difference, and we're very appreciative of that. I'll also flag that we do have a PAC as well. And so if your brand has a federal PAC, we can also do a PAC to PAC transfer as well. And then the other ask is really help us connect with your franchisees. They are Texas operators. We want to know them. We want to help them. We want to support them, and we want their feedback to be part of the work that we're doing with all of our advocacy efforts. And then just to put a little sort of context on it, because I know many of you are national members of the NRA, you pay dues. But just to be frank, very little of that dues money actually comes down to us. So we did some math, and of the 100, there are 132 national members who are not domiciled in Texas. On average, we receive $591 for each. So $591 does not go very far when you're talking about local, state, and federal advocacy, as you can imagine. And so that's really where the ask is. If you can chip in $5,000, $2,500, that really goes a long way towards helping our efforts. So that was the whole presentation we planned, but certainly want to make sure there's time for feedback, for questions, and so would welcome those at this time. Erica, did I miss anything?
No, I think you had a great overview on everything that we do.
Thank you. It's nice to condense it to 9 slides.
I don't know how you did that, but
all right, well, if no one has any questions or feedback, again, you'll know how to find us. Please do reach out. We really are here to help. And we want to make sure we incorporate your feedback into all the work we're doing.
Yeah, no, I just want to say thank you so much for providing this. This is my first time participating in this webinar. I guess my question is, once sort of legislative session starts, is this something that's frequent, or do like once a month, or sort of given updates?
It's a great question. We've played around with different formats in terms of really getting the brands together to have, tailored conversations. I am open to y'all's feedback. I think we all dread the meeting on the calendar, the regular meeting on the calendar that you don't really need. So I don't want to overpopulate your calendars with meetings. I have the link here to sign up for our weekly newsletter. It is just once a week, every Thursday. The advocacy updates are the majority of that newsletter. So would really encourage at least one person per company to get those so that you see the highlights. We also did a monthly newsletter called Inside the Capitol with the TRA that is for our donors that give $1,000 or more, but that's specifically focused on advocacy. Again, once a month, so it's a little less frequent, and another great resource for our national brands as well. And if folks are interested in doing, you know, a regular Zoom, certainly open to that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions, feedback? Did those priorities seem in line with what y'all are hearing from your operators on the ground? Great. All right. Well, I think we took a 30-minute and made it 20 minutes. So I should charge you all extra in your traction contributions. But no, in all seriousness, thank y'all for being here today. Thank you for your support. And please never hesitate to reach out as you have ideas or feedback or anything that we can help you with.
Thank you so much.
Thank y'all. Have a good one.